Emma never thought a blind date could change her life. Until a man walked in, so short he barely reached her eye level while she was sitting. And that was just the beginning. Emma checked her phone for the 5th time, watching the tiny digital clock flick closer to 3 p.m. She was sitting at a small table near the window of an upscale cafe in Midtown Manhattan. The place smelled of roasted coffee beans and vanilla syrup. Outside, yellow cabs zoomed past on wet streets shining under a pale winter sun. Emma ran her finger around the rim of her coffee cup, trying to calm her racing pulse. It had been nearly a year since her divorce from Mike. Her friends kept saying she needed to get out there. So they'd set her up on this blind date. Emma wasn't sure if she should feel grateful or annoyed. She hated surprises, especially when it came to men. She glanced at the door each time the bell jingled. A man in a navy suit entered, looking around uncertainly. He was the only person alone. Emma felt a flicker of hope. But the moment he stepped closer, her breath caught. He was shorter than she'd expected, much shorter. Even while she was sitting, he barely reached her eye level. Emma's mind tried to estimate. He looked around 5'2", maybe 5'3". She had never dated a man under 5'7". For a split second, her brain refused to process it. Emma tried not to stare, but it was impossible not to notice. Ben stopped by her table and offered a shy smile. "Hi. You must be Emma?" Emma blinked, her lips parting but no sound coming out. She realized she was gripping her coffee cup so tightly that her knuckles had turned white. Ben cleared his throat, glancing at the floor. "I know, I'm shorter than advertised." Emma felt heat rush to her cheeks. She wanted to sink under the table and vanish. Instead, she forced a tight smile. "Oh, yes, I'm Emma." Ben laughed softly. "Don't worry. You're not the first to look at me like I'm a pocket-sized souvenir." Emma let out a short, nervous laugh. Ben continued, "A lot of women run the moment they see me. Especially when I'm shorter than the chair." Emma bit her lip, unsure how to respond. Ben added quickly, "It used to hurt. Now I'm kind of used to it." Emma found herself searching his eyes for a sign of bitterness. But there wasn't any. Instead, Ben's brown eyes sparkled with humor and honesty. Emma felt a tiny crack form in the wall she'd built around herself. She sat back in her chair, finally allowing herself to breathe. "So, Ben, what do you do?" she asked, her voice steadier. Ben grinned, as if grateful for the change of subject. "I'm an adventure pilot. Helicopters, small planes, you name it." Emma blinked again. "Wait, like those people who rescue hikers off mountains?" Ben laughed. "Kind of. But mostly I fly rich people over Manhattan so they can take pictures." Emma couldn't help but smile. He had this way of speaking that made everything sound lighter. Ben leaned forward. "Tell me about you. What do you do when you're not dazzling blind dates with your beauty?" Emma felt another flush creep into her cheeks. She chuckled softly. "I work in marketing. Nothing as cool as saving stranded hikers." Ben pretended to look serious. "Hey, marketing saves lives. I mean, how else would we know which yogurt has probiotics?" Emma burst into genuine laughter. Several heads in the cafe turned to look at them. She suddenly realized she was enjoying herself. And she wasn't expecting that at all. Ben leaned closer, lowering his voice as if sharing a secret. "Want to do something crazy right now?" Emma raised an eyebrow. "Define crazy." Ben grinned, a spark lighting his brown eyes. "How about a helicopter ride over Manhattan?" Emma laughed, thinking he was joking. "Right. And then we'll ride unicorns to Brooklyn?" Ben chuckled. "Hey, don't knock unicorns till you've tried them." Emma playfully rolled her eyes. She took a sip of her coffee, still grinning. But Ben suddenly pulled out his phone and dialed a number. "Yeah, it's Ben. We're ready. 10 minutes, okay?" Emma froze mid-sip. "Wait, you're serious?" Ben shrugged. "Life's too short to stay on the ground." Emma stared at him, words tumbling over each other in her mind. A faint vibration shook the cafe windows. Outside, the steady thump of helicopter blades grew louder. Emma twisted in her chair to look. A sleek black helicopter hovered down toward a helipad by the river. Her jaw dropped. "No freaking way," she whispered. Ben slid off his chair and held out his hand. Come on, Emma. Let's fly. Emma blinked at his hand, half terrified, half exhilarated. People in the cafe had started gathering at the windows to watch. Emma swallowed hard. This is nuts. Ben nodded. I know. That's why it's fun. Emma found herself laughing despite the panic bubbling in her chest. She grabbed her purse and let Ben lead her out the door. Outside, the cold winter wind hit her face like a slap. The helicopter's rotors whipped her hair around her cheeks. Emma instinctively ducked as Ben guided her toward the helipad. She had to shout over the roar. Ben, I've never been in a helicopter. Ben shouted back. Good. First time for everything. Emma tried to speak, but the words flew away with the wind. A crew member helped strap her into a headset and seatbelt. The pilot gave her a thumbs up. Ben squeezed into the seat beside her, grinning like a kid. As the helicopter lifted, Emma felt her stomach drop. Below them, Manhattan sprawled out like a glittering model city. Buildings shone silver and gold under the pale sun. Emma clutched the seat with trembling fingers. Ben nudged her. Breathe. You're missing the view. Emma forced herself to look. The sight was breathtaking. Central Park was a green rectangle surrounded by rivers of steel and glass. Tiny yellow cabs crawled like insects far below. Emma's fear started melting into awe. She turned to Ben. You really do this for fun? Ben winked. Fun is my middle name. Emma laughed shakily. But suddenly Ben leaned toward the pilot and gestured to the door. Emma frowned. What are you doing? Ben's voice came through the headset, playful yet serious. I booked us a tandem skydive. Emma blinked at him, stunned. Are you insane? Ben smiled. Probably. But think about it, Emma. You jump, and for those few seconds nothing else matters. Emma felt her breath catch. Her pulse thundered in her ears. She shook her head, panic surging. No. No way. Take me back down. Ben reached over and clasped her hand. His grip was strong, steady. Look at me. Emma met his eyes. Ben's voice softened. I promise I won't let anything happen to you. Emma felt something shift inside her. She hated how he made her feel brave. But she also loved it. She drew a trembling breath. God, I must be insane. Ben left. Welcome to the club. The helicopter door slid open. A rush of icy wind blasted Emma's face. Ben motioned for the skydiving instructor waiting outside the door. Emma stared into the blue void, legs shaking. Her entire body screamed no. But something in Ben's eyes told her to trust him. And she did. Emma took Ben's hand and stepped toward the door. The instructor hooked them together in the harness. Ben's voice was in her ear. 3, 2, 1. And then they were falling. For a moment, the world vanished. Emma felt only wind and Ben's heartbeat against her back. New York spread beneath them like a living painting. She screamed and then started laughing. The fear dissolved into pure adrenaline. She felt free in a way she hadn't in years. When the parachute opened, Emma gasped at the quiet. Ben's voice came softly through the rush of wind. See? Sometimes it's worth the leap. Emma felt tears sting her eyes. She knew, somehow, that this was the start of something she couldn't walk away from. Emma felt like she was floating even after her feet touched the ground. Her hair was a mess, her cheeks were flushed, but her eyes sparkled. Ben pulled off his skydiving helmet and hooped into the chilly air. That was insane, he shouted. Emma laughed, breathless. I can't believe I just did that. Ben grinned, eyes still wild with adrenaline. See? Life's better off the edge. Emma couldn't deny it. Something in her chest felt cracked open in the best possible way. She caught herself staring at Ben. For the first time she saw more than just his height. He was fearless, funny, and unbelievably alive. Ben glanced at his watch. How about one more adventure tonight? Emma raised a brow. Another helicopter? Or are we wrestling tigers this time? Ben chuckled. Even better. There's this place I want to show you. Emma tilted her head. What kind of place? Ben winked. A speakeasy. Hidden entrance. No signs. Only regulars know it exists. Emma squinted at him. Are you making this up? Ben crossed his heart dramatically. Scout's honor. Emma let out a half-skeptical laugh. All right, mystery man. Lead the way. They grabbed a cab heading downtown. The neon lights blurred past the windows. Ben kept sneaking glances at her as if he couldn't believe she was still there. Emma noticed his leg bouncing with nervous energy. Ben cleared his throat. Hey, thanks for trusting me today. Emma looked at him, warmth blooming in her chest. I should be the one thanking you. I can't remember the last time I felt alive. Ben swallowed, suddenly shy. The cab stopped on a dark street lined with brick buildings. Ben jumped out and held the door for Emma. Okay. You ready? Emma stepped out cautiously. Ready for what? An ambush? Ben laughed and pulled her toward a metal door in an alley. A tiny peephole slid open. A man's voice grumbled, "Password?" Ben leaned forward. Skyfall. The door creaked open, revealing a narrow staircase lit by red neon. Emma blinked. This is real? Ben shot her a mischievous grin. Welcome to the Crimson Room. Inside, jazz music curled through smoky air. Velvet curtains hung from the ceiling. Candlelight glowed on mahogany tables. Bartenders in suspenders mixed cocktails like art. Emma's eyes widened, drinking in the secret world. Ben guided her to a corner booth. A server placed 2 menus on the table. Ben waved it away. 2 Manhattans. Extra cherries. Emma smirked. Bold choice. Ben shrugged. When in Manhattan. They clinked glasses. Emma took a sip and felt the warmth bloom in her chest. They talked about everything. Childhood memories. Weird jobs. First heartbreaks. Ben confessed he used to hate being short. He'd avoided crowds, photos, anything that reminded him he wasn't normal. Emma listened intently, her heart twisting. Ben shrugged, forcing a smile. But eventually, you either hate yourself forever or you just decide to live anyway. Emma stared at him, admiration flooding her chest. You're incredible, Ben. Ben laughed softly. Careful. Compliments make me taller. Emma giggled, feeling warmth rush to her cheeks. For the first time in a long time she felt completely seen. Ben asked about her dreams. Emma admitted she wanted to open her own creative agency someday. Ben listened like every word mattered. His eyes never drifted. He made her feel like she was the only person in the room. Emma realized she hadn't felt this connected to someone in years. Time melted away between them. By the time they left the bar, it was close to midnight. Outside, the city hummed with life. Steam rose from manholes. Headlights cast glints on wet pavement. Ben walked her to the curb where cabs were waiting. They stood awkwardly under a flickering streetlight. Ben shoved his hands into his coat pockets. I had a great time tonight. Emma stared at him, her chest tight. So did I. Ben hesitated. Well, I guess this is. But before he could finish, Emma grabbed his face and kissed him. The kiss was warm, unexpected, and full of promise. Ben froze for a split second. Then his hands gently cupped her cheeks. The city seemed to fade around them. When they pulled apart, both were breathless. Emma whispered, "Thank you for today." Ben smiled, eyes soft. "I should be thanking you." A cab honked nearby, snapping them back to reality. Ben cleared his throat. "Get home safe, okay?" Emma nodded, cheeks still burning. As she slid into the cab, she couldn't stop grinning. Through the window, Ben stood watching her, his eyes shining. And for the first time since her divorce, Emma felt like maybe, just maybe, her heart was ready to try again. Emma woke up the next morning still smiling from the night before. She kept replaying Ben's kiss in her mind, feeling a spark ignite in her chest. She was halfway through pouring coffee when her phone buzzed with a text. It was Ben. "Hope you slept well. Can't stop thinking about last night." Emma felt her cheeks flush as she typed back. "Me neither." She slipped on a blouse, feeling lighter than she had in ages. At lunch break, Emma decided to treat herself to a salad from her favorite cafe. She pushed open the door, and nearly collided with a man coming out. It was Mike, her ex-husband. For a moment they both froze, staring at each other. Mike was in a crisp suit, holding a to-go coffee. Emma's pulse thudded in her ears. Mike's eyes dropped to someone behind her. His brow furrowed. Emma turned to see Ben walking up the sidewalk carrying 2 iced coffees. Ben spotted Emma and waved, grinning. Hey. Thought you might need a caffeine refill. Mike's mouth fell open. His gaze traveled up and down Ben as if measuring him. Ben stepped forward, oblivious to the tension. Hi there. I'm Ben. Mike blinked, stunned. Then his lips twisted into a smirk. Well, you've certainly downsized, haven't you, Emma? Emma felt like ice water had been dumped over her head. Mike, don't. Mike crossed his arms. Seriously, Emma? This is your new guy? He's tiny? Ben cleared his throat. It's cool, man. I get it. Mike sneered. I mean, do you pick him up to reach the top shelf? Emma's eyes burned. That's enough, Mike. Ben gently touched Emma's arm. It's fine. But Emma could hear the strain in his voice. Mike shook his head, laughing under his breath. Wow. Okay. Good luck with that. He brushed past them, leaving the smell of cologne hanging in the air. Emma stood rooted, feeling humiliated. Ben tried to meet her eyes, but she looked away. I should get back to work, Emma mumbled. Ben hesitated. Emma? But she was already turning away. At the office, Emma felt people staring at her as she walked in. Whispers buzzed like static behind her back. Her coworker, Jenna, sidled up to her cubicle. Hey, Em. Is it true your new boyfriend's like 5'2"? Emma blinked, stunned. How do you know that? Jenna giggled. Mike was in here earlier. He said you've got yourself a pocket-sized man. Emma felt her stomach drop. He, what? Jenna shrugged. He said it was cute. Like a rescue project. Emma felt heat flood her face. She clenched her fists under her desk. Jenna tilted her head. But hey, you. I guess some girls are into fun size. Emma forced a stiff smile. Thanks, Jenna. Jenna flounced away, leaving a trail of perfume. Emma stared blankly at her computer screen. Her phone buzzed again. Ben. Dinner tonight? Emma stared at the text, a wave of confusion and guilt washing over her. Her mind replayed Mike's smirk. The whispers. Ben's vulnerable eyes. She didn't know what to say. She locked her phone and dropped it into her bag. Outside, the city roared on. But for Emma, the world suddenly felt a lot smaller, and much colder. Emma stood in front of a men's shirt rack, fingers brushing through rows of fabric. She'd been in the store for nearly an hour. None of the shirts seemed right. Some sleeves were too long. Others were far too wide. She held one up against herself, trying to guess how it might fit Ben. The sales associate approached her. Shopping for your son? Emma's heart dropped into her stomach. Oh, no. For my boyfriend. The sales associate blinked. Oh, sorry. How tall is he? Emma swallowed. About 5'2". The saleswoman hesitated, her smile faltering. Let me check the boys section. Emma felt heat rush up her neck. No. It's okay. Thank you. She quickly hung the shirt back and fled the store. Outside, snow was starting to fall in soft flurries. Emma pulled her scarf tighter around her neck. She felt like everyone was staring at her. Her phone buzzed. Ben's name lit up the screen. Hey, miss you. Want to hang out tonight? Emma stared at the message, her chest tightening. She wanted to say yes. But her mind kept replaying Mike's cruel smirk. And Jenna's words about fun size. She stuffed her phone back into her pocket. That weekend, Ben invited Emma to dinner. He'd chosen a quiet Thai place near her apartment. Emma picked at her noodles, barely tasting the food. Ben watched her silently for a long moment. Finally, he set his fork down. Emma, are we okay? Emma blinked, startled. Of course we are. Ben tilted his head, studying her. I feel like you're somewhere else lately. Emma forced a smile. I'm just busy. Work's been insane. Ben nodded slowly. Is it me? Emma's breath caught. No. No, Ben. He gave a soft laugh that didn't quite reach his eyes. I get it, Emma. I'm not exactly the kind of guy you'd picture yourself with. Emma reached across the table and grabbed his hand. Don't say that. Ben squeezed her fingers. I'm serious. This is too hard for you. I'll walk away. I don't want to be the reason you're unhappy. Emma felt tears prick the corners of her eyes. You're not the reason. It's just complicated. Ben waited, searching her face for the truth. Emma pulled her hand back. She dropped her gaze to her plate. Ben's voice grew quieter. I don't blame you, Emma. People stare. People talk. Emma clenched her jaw. People can go to hell. Ben let out a tired laugh. I wish it were that simple. Emma shook her head, struggling to speak. I don't know how to tell my friends. Or my mom. Ben looked down at his napkin. It's okay. You don't have to. Emma blinked at him, feeling her heart twist. But that's not fair to you. Ben lifted his eyes, gentle and sad. Life's not always fair. But I'm used to that. Emma felt guilt coil tighter in her chest. I'm trying, Ben. I really am. Ben smiled faintly. I know. That's why I'm still here. They finished dinner mostly in silence. Outside, snow fell heavier now, dusting the sidewalks in white. Ben offered to walk Emma home. They walked side by side without touching. Emma felt the distance like a cold wind between them. When they reached her building, Ben stopped. He shoved his hands into his coat pockets. I'll let you get some sleep. Emma wanted to say something. Anything. But the words got stuck in her throat. Ben rose slightly on his toes and brushed a gentle kiss to her cheek, lingering longer than usual. Good night, Emma. Emma watched him walk away, snow collecting in his dark hair. She felt her chest tighten until she could barely breathe. And deep down she knew she was hurting him. But she couldn't bring herself to let the world in. Emma stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her hair for the third time. She couldn't remember the last time she'd been this nervous. She kept glancing at the clock as if wishing it would slow down. Tonight she was bringing Ben to meet her mother. She'd postponed it for weeks. But Ben deserved to be included in her life. Emma took a deep breath and texted Ben. Ready? Ben replied almost instantly. Always. Half an hour later, Emma opened her apartment door. Ben stood there holding a small bouquet of white lilies. Emma smiled despite her nerves. Hi. Ben held out the flowers. For your mom. Or for you. I'm not sure of the rules. Emma laughed softly. Thank you. She'll love them. They drove in near silence to her mother's brownstone in Brooklyn. Emma kept fidgeting with her seatbelt. Ben glanced over. Relax. I'm not that scary. Emma exhaled shakily. You haven't met my mom. Ben gave a mock salute. I'm prepared for battle. Mrs. Carter greeted them at the door with a stiff smile. She wore pearl earrings and smelled faintly of lavender. Emma introduced Ben. Mom, this is Ben. Ben stepped forward and offered his hand. It's wonderful to finally meet you, Mrs. Carter. Mrs. Carter's eyes widened slightly. Her gaze dropped from Ben's face to the top of his head. Oh, you're shorter than I expected. Emma winced. Mom? Mrs. Carter waved a hand as if brushing it off. Nothing wrong with being petite. Ben let out a quick laugh. Petite. I'll take that over fun size. Mrs. Carter didn't laugh. She turned and led them into the dining room. Dinner smelled like roast chicken and garlic bread. The table was set perfectly, silverware gleaming. Emma sat across from Ben trying to smile. Mrs. Carter poured herself a glass of wine. So, Ben, what do you do for work? Ben brightened. I'm a pilot. Helicopters mostly. Mrs. Carter blinked. Oh, I suppose the cockpit seats adjust. Emma's jaw dropped. Mom? Ben lifted his wine glass. They do. And thank God for seat cushions. Mrs. Carter forced a polite chuckle. Ben continued talking about flying. Emma watched him, her stomach twisting. Ben smiled, but there was a tightness around his eyes. Mrs. Carter kept sneaking glances at him over her wine glass. At one point she whispered, He's brave. Coming here knowing he'd stand out. Emma clenched her fork so hard her knuckles whitened. After dessert, Mrs. Carter stood to clear the plates. Ben rose immediately. Let me help, Mrs. Carter. Mrs. Carter patted his arm. No, dear. Sit. You'll only have to climb up on a stool to reach the cabinets. Emma felt her breath catch in her throat. Ben froze for half a second, then laughed. I'm great with step stools. It's like mountain climbing for short people. Mrs. Carter disappeared into the kitchen. Ben stared down at his napkin, silent. Emma reached across the table. Ben, I'm sorry. Ben forced a smile. It's fine. But his voice was too quiet. On the drive home, Ben stared out the window. Emma kept stealing glances at him. Neither of them spoke for several blocks. Finally, Ben broke the silence. Do you ever wonder if this will always be a thing? Emma blinked. A thing? Ben twisted his hands in his lap. My height. People staring. Jokes. Your mom? Emma opened her mouth, but no words came out. Ben's voice dropped lower. I need to know, Emma. Can you really love me? Or is this always going to be between us? Emma felt tears sting her eyes. I don't know. Ben swallowed, his Adam's apple bobbing. Emma whispered, I need time to figure it out. Ben nodded slowly. I can give you time. But it's hard waiting when I don't know what I'm waiting for. Emma bit her lip, heart aching. They pulled up in front of her building. Ben turned to her, eyes searching. Good night, Emma. Emma hesitated. Good night, Ben. He stepped out of the car without another word. Emma sat frozen in the passenger seat, watching his silhouette fade into the dark. And for the first time, she wondered if loving him might cost more courage than she thought she had. The winter sun shone weakly over Coney Island. Emma zipped up her coat as cold wind whipped across the boardwalk. Ben was beside her, grinning, his cheeks pink from the chill. Come on. You've got to try the cyclone at least once in your life. Emma laughed, shaking her head. No way. My heart's still recovering from skydiving. Ben gave her a playful bump with his shoulder. You're braver than you think. They wandered past colorful stalls selling hot dogs and cotton candy. Emma inhaled the salty sea breeze, feeling lighter than she had in days. For a while it felt like no one else existed. Ben pointed at a prize booth. I'm winning you a stuffed unicorn. Emma giggled. I'd settle for a churro. Ben held up his palms. Fine. Joe first. Unicorn second. They strolled, laughing, trading jokes. Emma found herself staring at Ben. He was shorter, yes, but his spirit was towering. Ben suddenly stopped walking. Want ice cream? Emma blinked. In January? Ben raised his eyebrows. Only the strong survive. Emma laughed. Okay. Go get your ice cream, you lunatic. Ben jogged toward the ice cream stand. Emma hugged herself against the cold. She wandered toward a boutique she remembered from a few weeks back. As she peered into the window, a woman stepped outside. Hey there. Oh my God, I remember you. Emma's eyes widened. Oh, hi. The boutique owner smiled warmly. You bought that small men's button-down a while ago, for your son, right? Emma froze. The woman gestured behind her. Her little boy, about 10, came running out wearing a blue plaid shirt. The exact same shirt Emma had bought for Ben. Emma felt heat flood her cheeks. Oh, wow. That's cute on him. The boutique owner beamed. It's a perfect fit. So glad it worked out for your son too. Emma swallowed, words stuck in her throat. Ben appeared suddenly, holding 2 cones of mint chocolate chip. Guess who braved the cold for you? Emma spun around, startled. Ben? Ben's grin faded when he saw her expression. Everything okay? Emma struggled to speak. Yeah. I'm fine. Ben glanced between her and the boutique owner. The woman looked at Ben, eyes darting from his face to the cones in his hands. Oh, is this your friend? Emma felt like her skin was on fire. Yes, this is Ben. The woman's smile faltered for a split second. Oh, nice to meet you. Ben extended a cone toward Emma. Here. Extra sprinkles. Emma hesitated, then took it with trembling fingers. Ben cocked his head. Emma, talk to me. Emma forced a tight smile. I'm just cold. Let's go. They walked away from the boutique in silence. Ben glanced at her every few steps. Emma kept her eyes fixed on the horizon. She felt sick. The shirt. The boutique lady's look. Everything felt humiliating. She suddenly wished she could be invisible. Ben touched her arm gently. Hey, whatever it is, I'm here. Emma blinked back tears. I know. But inside her chest felt like it was caving in. That night, Emma sat on the edge of her bed, staring at her phone. Ben's contact photo smiled back at her. She thought about his laugh, his kindness, the way he made her feel brave. But she also heard Mike's voice mocking her, saw Jenna's smirk, remembered Mrs. Carter's uneasy glances. Emma squeezed her eyes shut, feeling pain twist in her gut. She didn't want to break Ben's heart, but she couldn't bear being the target of whispers forever. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She picked up the phone and dialed Ben's number. Ben stood on his apartment balcony, gripping the railing until his knuckles turned white. The cold wind whipped through his hair, stinging his cheeks. Below, the city glowed with a million lights, but it felt impossibly far away. Ben stared into the night sky, breath fogging in front of him. He whispered to no one, "Why can't I just be normal?" A siren wailed somewhere down the street. Ben shut his eyes, fighting tears. He heard Emma's voice echoing in his head. I can't do this anymore." Ben clenched his jaw, trying to swallow the hurt. He kept replaying the boutique owner's look, Mike's cruel words, Emma's eyes full of guilt. It all crashed over him like a wave. He wanted to hate her, but he couldn't. He knew how the world looked at them. He knew how heavy it was for Emma to carry. He hung his head, voice trembling. "I'm so tired of feeling like the problem." A single tear slid down his cheek. He wiped it away roughly. Inside his apartment, framed photos of his flying adventures lined the shelves. The images looked hollow tonight. Ben stepped back inside, shutting the balcony door. He collapsed onto the couch, burying his face in his hands. Meanwhile, Emma sat curled on her own couch, clutching a blanket around her shoulders. Her apartment felt huge and empty. She stared at her phone screen, Ben's name still sitting at the top of her messages. She hadn't replied since the call last night. Emma whispered to herself, "It's better this way." But even as she said it, her chest twisted with pain. She tried to distract herself with TV, but nothing held her attention. Every channel seemed to show happy couples. She shut it off and sat in silence. Outside, the snow fell heavier, blanketing the streets in white. Emma pulled her knees tighter to her chest. Memories of Ben flooded her mind. His laugh. The way he looked at her like she was the only person in the world. Emma squeezed her eyes shut, tears leaking out. She whispered into the darkness, "I miss you." Ben lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. His alarm clock blinked 3:12 a.m. He rolled onto his side, clutching the pillow Emma had once rested her head on. He inhaled deeply as if hoping to catch her scent. But it was gone. Ben covered his face with both hands. He felt like a piece of him had been ripped away. Days passed. Emma moved through them like a ghost. She went to work, smiled when necessary, laughed when it was expected. But inside she felt numb. At lunch, she stared blankly at her salad, appetite gone. Jenna chattered nearby, but Emma barely heard a word. At night, Emma lay in bed, listening to the city sounds outside her window. But all she could hear was the silence where Ben's voice used to be. Ben spent his evenings at the hangar, pretending to check equipment. Other pilots laughed and shared stories, but Ben stayed quiet. He stared at the helicopters, remembering Emma's nervous laughter that first flight. He closed his eyes, swallowing hard. Both of them kept trying to convince themselves the breakup was right. But neither believed it. Because in the quiet moments when the world fell away, all they felt was each other's absence. Emma sat at her desk, staring blankly at her computer screen. Her inbox was full, but the words blurred together. She'd barely slept in days. She felt like a balloon stretched too thin, ready to burst. Sarah, her colleague, appeared beside her cubicle wall. "Eminesia, we need to talk." Emma blinked, startled. Sarah crossed her arms, eyes fierce. "I'm sick of watching you shrink yourself for other people." Emma frowned, voice small. "I'm not shrinking." Sarah leaned closer. "Yes, you are. You're living your whole life worried about what idiots think." Emma opened her mouth, then closed it again. Sarah slammed her hand lightly on the desk. "So what if your guy's shorter? Tomorrow, if people tell you that you don't deserve to live, would you believe that too?" Emma recoiled, stunned. That's not the same thing. Sarah shook her head, voice trembling. It is. Because you're letting them decide your worth. Emma swallowed, her throat dry. Sarah lowered her voice. You love him, don't you? Emma stared at her, eyes filling with tears. Sarah continued. Then fight for him. Or at least stop pretending your heart doesn't hurt. Emma pressed a hand to her chest. It's just hard. Sarah's expression softened. I know. But love's supposed to be hard sometimes. Otherwise it's not worth it. Emma dropped her gaze to her keyboard. Sarah squeezed her shoulder gently. Don't let people who don't care about you ruin someone who does. Emma felt something shiver awake inside her. After work, Emma walked home under gray clouds heavy with snow. Each step felt lighter than the day before. She kept replaying Sarah's words in her head. When she reached her building, she saw Mrs. Carter waiting by the front door. Emma froze mid-step. Mom? Mrs. Carter clasped her purse tightly in front of her. Hi, sweetheart. Emma shifted her weight, bracing herself. Mrs. Carter took a step closer. I've been thinking. Emma stiffened. About what? Mrs. Carter's voice wavered. About how I acted. About Ben. Emma stayed silent, breath caught in her chest. Mrs. Carter looked down at the sidewalk. I was cruel. I judged him without knowing him. And I hurt you. Emma blinked, her throat burning. Mrs. Carter's eyes filled with tears. I was scared for you. Scared people would hurt you if they saw you with him. Emma whispered. They already did. Mrs. Carter let out a shaky breath. I know. And I made it worse. Emma blinked away tears. Mrs. Carter reached out and took her daughter's hands. You love him, don't you? Emma's lips parted. I think I always have. Mrs. Carter squeezed her fingers. Then don't throw it away because of people like me. We're all wrong sometimes. Emma felt a sob rise in her chest. Mrs. Carter pulled her into a tight hug. Emma buried her face in her mother's shoulder. Mrs. Carter whispered in her ear. Follow your heart, baby. Not the world's noise. Emma clung to her mother, feeling walls crumble inside her. For the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to hope. As they pulled apart, Mrs. Carter smiled through tears. Bring him over again. Properly this time. Emma let out a trembling laugh. I will, Mom. I promise. And deep down, she knew what she had to do next. Emma stood in the helicopter hangar, her breath visible in the cold air. She clutched her phone, reading and rereading the message she'd typed. I need to do something crazy. For us. The pilot looked at her, brow raised. You sure about this, lady? Emma nodded firmly. Absolutely. Minutes later, a black helicopter roared to life on the tarmac. Emma climbed in, her heart pounding. Above the city, the winter sky was pale blue and endless. Emma stared out the window as the buildings fell away beneath her. The pilot's voice crackled in her headset. We're over the Lower East Side. You ready for the banner? Emma swallowed hard. Let it fly. Outside the window, white smoke began to swirl into letters across the sky. Letter by letter, the message appeared. Ben, I choose you. Below, people on the street stopped and pointed at the sky. Emma pressed her palms to the glass, eyes shining. Meanwhile, Ben was walking through Tompkins Square Park, hands shoved in his pockets. He was wearing headphones, lost in thought. Suddenly, a group of people began shouting and pointing upward. Ben tugged off his headphones, frowning. He looked up and saw the skywriting overhead. His eyes widened as he read the words. Ben, I choose you. Ben froze in the middle of the path. His heart slammed into his ribs. From above, the helicopter descended slowly toward the park. Emma peered out the door, spotting Ben's familiar dark hair. She motioned to the skydiving instructor. Now. Ben watched in shock as a figure leaped from the helicopter. A bright parachute unfurled, blooming like a flower against the sky. Emma screamed into the wind as she dropped closer and closer. Ben took a step forward, his mouth hanging open. The parachute touched down on the snowy grass. Emma landed, stumbling slightly as she unhooked herself. Her hair was a wild mess, eyes wide and glistening. Ben stared at her like he couldn't believe she was real. Emma, what the hell are you doing? Emma was panting, trembling from adrenaline. She dropped to her knees in front of him. Ben, I'm done hiding. Ben blinked rapidly, speechless. Emma's voice cracked as she spoke. I don't care how tall you are. She placed a shaking hand on his chest. You're the only man who makes me feel alive. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I love you. And I want everyone to know. Ben opened his mouth, closed it, then finally let out a strangled laugh. You just jumped out of a helicopter, for me? Emma let out a breathless laugh through her tears. I did. Because you're worth the leap. Ben felt his vision blur with tears. He bent forward, pressing his forehead to hers. You're insane. Emma sniffled. I know. Ben cupped her face in his hands. And I love you for it. Emma let out a soft sob. Ben pulled her into his arms. They kissed as snow fell gently around them. People nearby began clapping and cheering. Emma and Ben pulled away, both laughing and crying. Above them, the last wisps of skywriting faded into the pale sky. The New York skyline glowed gold and silver in the distance. Emma whispered, Let's go home. Ben squeezed her hand. Anywhere. As long as it's with you. Not every love fits the world's mold. Some stories start with sideways glances, quiet insecurities, and the fear of being seen. Some don't unfold on perfect dates, but in glances across crowded rooms, rooftop tears, and the courage to stand tall no matter how tall you are. If Emma and Ben's story touched something in your heart, leave a comment and share what it meant to you. If you believe love isn't about fitting in, but about standing out together, hit like and share this with someone who needs a reminder that real love doesn't measure inches. And don't forget to subscribe to SoulTales, where stories aren't just told, they're felt.